Welcome back to the Uncle Jay podcast for episode 4. I'm your host, Uncle Jay. Tonight we'll be diving into the current state of political affairs in our country and exploring the new clean deal with our special guest, filmmaker and producer, Patrick Lovell. We'll also hear from Rose Ann, a dedicated community servant from Boulder City, Nevada, who has spent decades fighting corruption and helping those in need. Stay tuned for an enlightening discussion on the challenges we face and the vision for a cleaner, brighter future. Let's get started. Welcome, guys. How you feeling tonight?
Hey, Jay.
Hey, how you
Hi,
doing?
Jay. Good to see you again,
Hey,
my
what's
friend.
up, Pat? How you guys feeling?
I'm good. I just watched the President Biden exit speech, and I'm pretty primed, bud.
Yeah, well, tell me about it because I hadn't had a chance to watch it because I was, running, going crazy, getting ready for our episode tonight. What was said? How did he look? They've been questioning him whether he's alive or I think I call her Looney Loomer. Laura Loomer, the whack job on Twitter. I call her Looney Loomer, and
Ugly.
she was
Ugly.
she's crazy, and she's like, oh, they're in the plane flying around his dead body and all of this and all that. She's just a whack job. But what was the president saying? Hold on here.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I have
there you
myself.
go. Yep, no worries.
So, I'm going to read what I just posted on X, and I'll just let that speak for the way I responded to it. But first of all, I thought he would look fantastic. But I just said, I just caught President Biden's exit speech, and he showed more class and dignity in his pinky finger than the whole rotted carcass of the Republican Party. I said the filth of Marjorie Gangrene and Horan Hobart, Alex Squeal Like a Pig Jones, and Tucker, I'm gay and everybody knows it, Carlson, and the rest of the filth at Fox have demonstrated not only the past few weeks, but many, many years. The only thing that I take issue with in the lines that Joe read from the teleprompter were that we stand for democracy, dignity, decency, honesty, and integrity. No, we don't. We don't stand for any of those things. I know that the professional hens at MSNBC want to echo chamber that fictional choice because it sounds great to people who don't understand reality. And it's a fevered pitch in that we're the good guy Dems versus the filthy Trumplicans that are selling our country down the river, but they're not remotely Walter Cronkite. Maddow sat on the material that I continue to reveal to the world because she chose to silence the truth that unfortunately President-elect Harris played ball alongside Barack and Holder, who sold out the people they pretend to represent because they were working for Wall Street, as well as the steel hat pensioners that came from the Rust Belt while giving trillions to the fuckers that roofied the world. It never ended. Look, it's a real mess, people. I like Kamala a lot more, or Kamala, a lot more than the end of the world Trump. And I love these great distinguished pictures of her all over X and her line dancing in one of us videos. But she let Mnuchin and Wall Street get away with the insane betrayal and theft because the bosses of the DNC told her to. Obviously, it was a wise decision if your end game is to head a party that is owned by Wall Street. Some might consider that pretty savvy. I tend to think of it as folks like that as diabolical, treacherous bastard villains. Yeah, I can understand that the Republicards are owned by big oil and defense and contractors and casino maggots and Saudis and gay tech boys, etc. But trust me, I wish I didn't know what I know. I promise you, I could wave one if I could wave one of those light wands in Men in Black and just etch a sketch my memory, just like the entirety of the financial terrorists wish they could do to me, but I can't do it. I know too much, and I'm not a coward or a liar or a traitor because integrity, decency, honesty, and dignity actually mean something to me. I also wish I could take the high ground and channel my professionalism and distinguished credibility, but people don't listen to that. We've been conditioned by 40 years of shock jocks and liars, and it's been a never-ending downward spiral. I wish President Biden a bon voyage, retirement from his 50 years in politics, and I truly thank him for defeating Trump and accomplishing all that he has. But he told us all we needed to know when he stated during the fabulous bounce in Detroit the day before Trump narrowly missed a really twisted ending, when he said that the people are who he relied on, not the elites. Now that was 3 days before the money was withheld from the donors. That was followed by weeks of messages in the NY Times, and all of the other people like George Clooney who sent the message, "Joe, you're not in charge. Our money is." And $387 million in a week later, President-elect Harris is off to the races. So here I am, America, your last best chance to defeat the corruption that has created this insanity. If you refuse to live a lie, find me and let's get busy getting busy to forge the clean new deal to purge the misery of tyranny and unleash the renaissance of possibility, because there's better ways to spend 71 trillion than on the largest criminal racket in history that never ends.
Wow. What a tweet. I dig it. I respect it. I respect you. Like I said, we had conversation last night for a short time. And but before I get into that, was there anything you wanted to say about that tweet he put out, Rose?
I have to say this a little bit shorter. Okay. Patrick, you know I'm going to do that, right? You know I'm always with the shorter stuff.
That's because you're a Mighty Mouse.
That's right. I stand 4'10". Okay. Now, back in 2016, I'm in the front row of a meet and greet for a candidate that I was supporting. All right. And Joe Biden's there. Now, it's a small room. Maybe you could fit, to me, small is 200 people. Okay. So there's like 200 people there. I'm in the front. I'm in the front row, in front of the line, the whole bit, right? And Joe Biden's walking across the line, shaking hands, doing all that stuff, right? He comes up to me and I tell him my name and I say, I'm originally from Chicago. At that moment, his eyes lit up. He grabs me to hug me more. What did that say to me? Okay. That said to me, Joe, you know about the power, the corruption, and what's going on in the back room. Okay. So I can't go with, I'm not saying I'm going to vote for or against. Well, first of all, ain't no way I'm ever going to vote for Trump. I don't care whatever happens. That ain't ever, never in my lifetime going to happen. Kamala has to show me something. Okay? What I want her to show all of us, what I want her to show to win is to start talking about the Clean New Deal. I want her to talk about End Citizens United now. I want her to talk about we need a new Glass-Steagall. Now, people may not know about Glass-Steagall, and that's okay, because all they got to do, they follow Patrick on Twitter, they follow me on Twitter, we'll answer their questions, we'll send them videos, we'll talk to them on the phone. Kamala can call us anytime. I'm always answering the phone. Patrick, I know Patrick answers the phone all the time. That's what we got to do. Okay? Because I am too old to go through BS, garbage, scum, suffering, killing, dying, where scumbag politicians, or as my friend Tom Murphy, and we'll tell you who Tom Murphy is. Tom Murphy calls them criminals in suits with no shame. With no shame. What they're doing is they're stealing from you. It's that simple, folks. You don't have to know all the details. All you got to know is they're stealing you blind. It ain't rocket science. It's racketeering. And with that, I go back to my buddy Jay. Jay, I got to tell you, Jay, you look like my friend out here in Boulder City. You look like Vinny Semino. You do. You look like
A
Vinny.
mob boss?
No. He owns a restaurant.
Oh, okay. Okay.
He's from Rockford, and he's got a real nice wife, Tina. He got real nice kids. They work in a restaurant and everything. He's a good kid. He's a good kid. You look like his younger brother. But anyway, look, you can see I gotta say this stuff to people because I gotta get them off their butt. I gotta get them excited. Jay and I were talking the other day. It was like Sunday, and the more he's talking, and I just let him talk. See, the more he's talking, the more excited he's getting, and I'm going to myself, yes. Patrick, what did I tell you about when you did the show with Jay? How was I talking about Jay? Like
you said he's a guy from the neighborhood.
He's a guy from the neighborhood. That's right. And that's what we need. We need those people because generally they don't speak up, right, Jay? Do the people in your neighborhood talk?
No, they don't. They don't. Everybody keeps to themselves. They go out and vote who they're going to vote for. They don't like to talk politics. They don't like to even, discuss what they're seeing on their televisions every night. It's just like the blind leading the blind. It's like everybody's got their head down and they just go to work. They get their check and they live in paycheck to paycheck. But, most of them will pretend that they're living, much higher than what they really are. No one wants to, let you know how bad that they're actually doing. Everything's a facade. And so it's like, when you actually get someone to talk about this stuff, you find out that you kind of agree on a lot of things. And when they finally do open up and they start talking about it, you get common ground and you realize that, hey, we have something in common. And that's just one more person that you can pull into the stratosphere of what we're trying to do. And, you guys keep bringing up the new clean deal, which I don't know much about. And I don't think, very many people outside of the people that you have informed about it know about it. So Patrick, why don't you go ahead and explain what that is and get us going on that part of what we're here for tonight.
Absolutely, Jay. So because of who I am and what I've done, I'm basically a muckraking journalist. I'm also a producer and a guy who unfortunately had to go on a journey that I wish would have ended years ago. But unfortunately, it's the gift that keeps giving. And as a result, I've gotten these answers that should have come from the Department of Justice, the FBI, the SEC, the OCC, which is the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency, and media writ large. Because what I reveal is the largest conspiracy, financial criminal conspiracy in the history of the world that never ended. And there's a lot of pieces to that we'll discuss this evening. But I also am a student of history. I understand American history, and I understand the ebbs and flows of, shall we say, in order to form a more perfect union. And there have been times in our nation's history that are more of and for by the people than at other times in history. Although, of course, the birth of our nation was exactly for that outcome. And of course, I think I heard Biden mention in his kind of conclusion this evening that in the Oval Office, is the plaque of Benjamin Franklin that says it's the Republic. This is a gift to the American people, the Republic, if you can keep it. And the long and the short of it is that we've lost it. We fumbled it. We completely eviscerated it because, like you said at the outset, Jay, most of us go to work. We want to get a paycheck. We want to live paycheck to paycheck, or we're forced to. A lot of us live on credit. We get into trouble. We have families. We're just basically hanging on by our fingertips. and things get really tough. Not all of us are, unfortunately, in what we call the high altitude, 1% and above, or 0.001%, which in its own right, once you understand all of the elements that I'll reveal to you as this conversation starts to progress, that you'll understand they're not so elite. They're just a bunch of fucking racketeers, and that's all there is to it. We just have to understand how they do it and who's letting them do it to get to the consistency that this is something our country had done once before. So after the Civil War, we had a litany of progressive movements that started with basically farmers that were, protesting through populist movements against the likes of the robber barons who were charging high fees on their agricultural goods that could bankrupt them at any time. That was one piece of the equation. Then there was the muckraking sort of things that people have heard from the likes of Sinclair Lewis, and of course, the meatpacking districts that would lead us to industrial sort of populist movements that would get us the sorts of laws and regulations that, would prevent children that came from poverty to have to work in factories, where they could die or lose a limb at any moment, for no wages, so that the guy who owned that place could completely exploit them. Ironically enough, we're back to that just with immigrants down in places like Texas in meatpacking districts, ironically, as well as, shall we say, slaughterhouses that Blackstone owns. So yeah, it's like
a grilling company.
What's that?
Grilling company, Blackstone.
Yeah, it's Steven Schwartzman. It's mostly asset management, but then they're also into hedge funds and they're also into private equity. They're into everything.
Oh, you saying BlackRock?
Yeah, no.
No.
Blackstone.
Oh, wow. So there's a Blackstone and a BlackRock. Okay,
right. And we can cover that as well later as well.
Okay.
So, but the long and the short of it is that these progressive movements then led to women's suffrage, then they led to civil rights, and they also included environmental rights. And all of these things created this sort of critical mass that led to the first version of an America of, by, and for the people that came after the robber baron era, when Teddy Roosevelt gave us the trust busting. That was the notion of it. And then 2 administrations later after that, his cousin, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, after giving an unbelievable speech in Madison Square Garden, where he, and I toasted this today, where he's basically the age-old, enemies of justice and freedom, which come in monopoly and capitalism and exploitative this and that and tyranny, they hate me and I welcome their hate. That led to the New Deal. So those were progressive movements to create a country of, by, and for the people. Of course, after the likes of Abraham Lincoln said to the American people after the Battle of Gettysburg, a nation of, by, and for the people shall not perish from this earth. So given all that history, and that being really the America central premise from beginning to now, what the Clean New Deal is the answer to Project 2025. We can talk about Project 2025, but it really has 3 basic principal tenets, and I'll let Rose Ann go into some others downstream here. But the first is we got to create a new Glass-Steagall, which is we've got to basically revamp and reform our financial industry, which is nothing but a lying, thieving, deceiving racket of massive, mafiocracy that we've now given $71 trillion since 2009, illegally, most of it. And there's a lot of different ways you can parse that out. But
and
at least
there's 1,000 billion and a trillion.
And I know he stumped me on that in the last episode. I was shocked that I didn't know that, but go ahead. I'm sorry. Finish.
Yeah, no problem. And our GDP is like 25 trillion. That's the sum total of all goods and services and everything throughout the United States in 1 year. This is 3 times that much in giveaways to an industry that's probably about 100,000 tops in really the financial district. And these guys got $71 trillion. Is it any wonder we have the disparity of wealth? Well, it all came from crime, but crime that nobody understands, that we unpacked. And so the Glass-Steagall Act, the new Glass-Steagall Act, we had an original Glass-Steagall for people who understand American history, because we went through what was known as the Great Depression after the Roaring 20s, which was ultimately playing with, let's just say, playing or gambling with other people's money. And that's what ultimately, when a gentleman by the name of Ferdinand Pecora, like you two, an Italian immigrant, right? I mean, your families came from Italy. And in fact, Ferdinand Pecora came from the same, I think, island, Sicily, that Rose Ann's family came from. But the long and the short of it is, he didn't know, he wasn't an expert in finance. He was an expert in fraud. He was an expert in what the mob was doing. So he got chosen by the then, which became the FDR administration, to figure out what happened during the Great Depression. And as a result, they ended up laying it all out in front of the 3 media channels that gave us the whole story of all of these tycoons that were stealing from everybody while everybody was suffering in Hoovervilles. And they were about to storm the Bastille at that time, just like J6, but for democracy and for liberty and justice for all, not for white supremacy. And as a result of it, that we ended up with Glass-Steagall, just simply that you separate commercial banking, which is absolutely necessary. Everybody needs finance. Everybody needs a protected place to put their capital, because hiding it under your mattress isn't a very smart way to do business. But the long and the short of it is that investment banking is also very important to the American economy. However, not fraud that is guaranteed by the full faith and credit of the United States, which is what we're trying to bring everybody's attention to. So we've got to recreate a new Glass-Steagall Act for the 21st century. We know how to do that. But we also have to concurrently get money out of politics, and we've got to destroy Citizens United, which is legalized bribery. Like, for example, we just saw for the last couple of weeks that the news that Elon Musk is going to throw $45 million a month into Trump's campaign. And then all of the hoopla today is, yeah, Elon's not really doing that.
Yeah, he said he never said that.
Right. What Elon is doing is he's putting $45 million a month into Trump's super PAC.
Oh.
So it's the way Citizens United works. So it's legalized gambling. And it's also, as I told you in our last conversation, Jay, that if Trump just exercised the LLC nonprofit status of what happens under Citizens United, he would never have had to reveal the hush money stuff. So that he would have gotten away with that back with Stormy Daniels in 2012, 2013, 14, before the 2016 election.
Well, that just shows you how much of an idiot he is. He claims to be this great businessman or whatever. Yeah. And look, he told on himself. He does it all the time.
He's a complete idiot. And he's a D- fraudster, which makes him a D- dictator. But the bottom line is it's not too long then somebody very dangerous could
savvy,
come up him. You know, and so, but the last piece of the equation for me, which is the most important piece, given everything that we've said, look, man, I've had these ideas, honestly, since the late 90s. Nothing has changed since the late 90s, Jay. We've lived in the same oil, financial, military juggernaut financial paradigm since really the 80s. And what we're in the midst of is a continuation and a perpetuation of that paradigm when we have the technology where we can rebuild the entire infrastructure of the United States.
Based on the definition of insanity.
Right. We could do renewable energy for about $7 trillion, soup to nuts. So, for example, I just revealed to you that $71 trillion was stolen through this massive fraud. So I need to get the American people to understand that that's the starting point to redeem the dream. So we want to try to get millions of people to join us on this effort, both in D.C. to surround the corrupt Supreme Court and the corrupt Federal Reserve and the corrupt Department of Justice. And then we want to go down to the National Mall underneath the gaze of Abraham Lincoln and across the reflecting pool of Martin Luther King, who said, you know, the moral arc of the universe is long, but it bends towards justice. We have to get the power back for we the people, and you do it through the Clean New Deal.
Well, Rose, let me ask you this, because you have experience in politics. What needs to be done in order to get these politicians on board, outside of just threatening that we're not going to, vote for them? Because, it's like, it's either you vote for the devil, or you vote for someone. It seems like you've only got two choices. It's the devil, the ones who have been perpetuating the same insanity, doing the same thing over and over and expecting, a different result. Or it's you go and you get some whack job who wants to take the country into a fascist Christian nationalist, direction. So I'll go ahead and let you, answer that question.
Here's the thing, Jay. Okay. In Nevada, in this coming election, okay, we are actually going to be voting for the second time. Because when we put when you get a question to put to the people and put into the Nevada Constitution, you got to vote on it twice. The people got to vote on it twice. So, first you got to get all these bazillion signatures. Well, I've been doing that for years. We finally got enough signatures. Then it went on the ballot the last time. Now it's got to go on again. And what that question is to institute ranked choice voting. I'm not going to go into all the details. You can look it up. They're using it in Alaska and many other places. But the fact of the matter is, what it does is open up the primaries. You're giving the power to the people, okay, so that you can vote. And maybe if your person doesn't come in first, as they go through the counting, your person can advance. Don't be put off by details. What happens is, and I can guarantee you this, you're giving power to the people, which people forget. They forget that they are powerful. They think, I can't do anything, and that's not true. When the people of my little town stormed the city hall to hear a discussion about water on the golf course or changing the zoning to put up other kinds of building, they come in droves. And what happens? At that point, and only at that point, do the people who are in charge listen to what the citizens are saying. Okay? Now, ranked choice voting is one thing. But the fact of the matter is this. If you watch the episode in the new Untouchables about Ferdinand Pecora and what he did during the first 100 days of the FDR administration, he formed the, let us say, kind of a different culture. We have a culture that is so corrupt, so upside down, so maddening that nobody knows which end is up. So it is incumbent upon us to say to people, look, you are powerful. We can have a government of, for, and by the people if you demand, which is exactly what we're trying to do now. We're trying to get millions of people to surround the Supreme Court building, to surround the Federal Reserve building, to surround the Department of Justice, to totally blanket all of Washington, D.C., so that Patrick and the film crews and all the speakers we're going to bring out there to be in the gaze of Abraham Lincoln, all the speakers that we bring out there are going to be people who know how to prosecute, what questions to ask, how to have these hearings. And when these hearings take place, like they did during the days of Ferdinand Pecora, Pecora got it so that the SEC was created, Federal Deposit Insurance Corp was created. Hey, Roosevelt closed the banks. He said, shut down. Now we're creating FDIC. Look at that. How could that happen? Because Roosevelt wasn't afraid in various instances to come up against those criminals in suits with no shame. And we know William K. Black, who with his team got together 30,000 referrals during the savings and loan crisis. Okay. And Mr. John McCain was involved in all this. It's corruption. Okay. Charles Keating got McCain. He got other senators. And Bill Black stopped this savings and loan crisis. They put, about 1,700 of these scumbags in jail.
They let one get away, though.
Pardon me?
They let one get away, if I'm not mistaken. He changed his shit to AmeriQuest. Roland Arnall.
Roland Arnall.
Yep. Yeah, okay. He changed. Yeah, he saw the writing on the wall, and he pulled the slick move, and renamed his whole company, and went on to do what essentially is the con. What Patrick, the film that Patrick put out, the series The Con.
Yeah, but at the same time, Roland Arnall, who got to be our ambassador to the Netherlands, was one terrible scumbag person. The 1,700 who went to jail did make a difference. But what you had was people like the baby Bush, and you had, Clinton said, we got to modernize, we got to get rid of Glass-Steagall. And he doesn't even know how to pronounce it right. But anyway, the real beginning of the end, when they start deregulating, decriminalizing, and desupervising what the hell is going on, and everybody starts getting used to all this. It's not a big deal. And the pièce de résistance is when dear Obama and his buddy Eric Holder, it might be unethical, but it's not illegal.
Not illegal. Oh, that killed me when I saw that.
Bull. Okay. So, yeah. All right. So Eric is telling people, and we know people. Patrick knows all these people. I know some of them to a lesser degree. But these people know what went on, know how to solve problems, and when the pressure is on, and we got to be the ones to put on the pressure, okay? We have to be the ones that put on the pressure, because we are not represented. Okay, we are not represented. They don't care. They're making too much money. So I say to everybody, we got to cut off their money. You cut off their money when you stop the Fed from rewarding and fueling these criminals in suits with no shame, who I happen to call the big boys, okay? You cut off their money, you stop bailing them out, you let the CEOs fall flat on their frickin' face, and to the stockholders, oh well.
Yeah, well, that's what I wanted to ask Pat. I wanted to ask Pat real quick. That's what essentially should have happened. Instead of Obama bailing them out, he should have just let them fall flat on their face. He should have not allowed the CEOs and all the stock, all the guys that had the stock options and everything keep their money. He should have went in, froze all that shit, and redistributed to the the people who suffered from that whole financial crisis due to the housing crash, especially people like Addie Polk, who lost her life, and who went on. You discover in your series that she didn't even sign for the loan. Someone doctored the information, and this poor woman, they come to her house every other day, trying to get her out, and she, kills herself, shoots herself 5 times in the chest, and survives for a short time, but then goes on, to perish. And like you said, Obama just gave him the money and said, it's not illegal, it's just unethical. What do you say to that, Pat?
Well, I mean, that would be if we had capitalism. We don't have capitalism.
You don't have capitalism.
We have a corporate fascist state undergirded by a criminal syndicate that uses the full faith and credit of the United States to guarantee the mafiocracy, which we show you on the con, that is now fueling fascism. And then the two-party duopoly is a joke. And is in my world Kamala Harris a better choice than Trump? Yeah, okay. But corruption births and fuels fascism, so here we are. So look, people need to understand this. Okay, President Trump was indicted on 91 criminal indictments that led to 34 criminal convictions that have followed a pattern. And the pattern is falsification of business records, perjury, a variety of documentation fraud schemes, and one particularly in the RICO case down in Fonnie Willis's Fulton County, Georgia. That, of course, Kenneth Chesebro, Trump's attorney, lead counsel, and then, of course, Rudolph Giuliani were caught up in. And, what happened to Rudolph Giuliani paying, $123 million to the women that he basically, was harassing, and the guy's bankrupt. I mean, the whole thing is a ginormous mess. The point being that we have seen over and over, especially if you watch MSNBC, and if you believe that it was relevant, for example, that Stormy Daniels and her testimony and, turtle dick this and that between hush money payments that ultimately led to the convictions, right? That stuff happened in 2006, okay, just to let you know. And everybody's like, oh my God, he's, and I was shocked when they read off the 34 criminal convictions, right? The felony convictions. Each one has you can be sentenced up to 4 years in jail per infraction. So 34 times 4. I mean, is Trump going to see any jail time? But my broader point is that a lot of what Trump did, including in the Letitia James, the New York State AG, and Judge Ergeron's courtroom, as it relates to Trump's, deceptive acts and practices and con and his business doings that led to
the 400 million, I think, is what
falsification of business records and all of these other things that were used through deceptive acts and practices. The point is, if you're lost in translation, who is Patrick Lovell? He's revealing to you the largest criminal conspiracy and cover-up in the history of the world. Because what Trump did that we all now know he is guilty of, and of course we're only going to see the 34 convictions in the hush money case because of what happened with Judge Eileen Cannon and of course the Supreme Court and the corrupt. And this goes to the reason why we've got to get in front of the Supreme Court for more than just Dobbs, by the way. But the long and the short of it is it's because the corruption was monumental. But as we've all now seen, and I don't think anybody can imagine up until this latest cycle where the SCOTUS has been revealed between Judge Alito siding with the insurrectionists and the upside down flag, and Clarence Thomas being in concert with Harlan Crow and Leonard Leo and all of these billionaires that that are leading to the likes of Project 2025 again, which I reviewed. The remedy to that is the Clean New Deal. But in our case, guys, what we revealed to you are literally tens of millions of felonies that led to tens of trillions of dollars that was stolen from the Federal Reserve that nobody knows about to this criminal apparatus because all of media laid down. The same media that wants to pretend like they're Walter Cronkite now and that Kamala is this manna from heaven because she's going to champion, the downtrodden versus, this white supremacist MAGA. I'd like to believe that. And she will in comparison. However, she's really just counsel.
Part of the machine.
Yes, that's the reality. And as you know, and I'll turn the tables on you for this question. Did Kamala Harris work for Addie Polk? And what happened to Addie Polk? And who was Addie Polk, Uncle Jay?
Addie Polk is a woman who had her house foreclosed on with a loan that was said to be given to her, but you discover in your series, The Con, that she never even signed for the loan and didn't even know that a loan had been given on her property. And which led to her committing suicide. Because they foreclosed on her property. They took her home from her.
Out of her house that she owned. An elderly woman, a black elderly woman.
Absolutely.
Who is Kamala Harris projected to be a champion of?
The African American community.
Did she help the likes of Addie Polk?
Absolutely not.
Now, they lived in different states, yada, 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 but I can guarantee you there was tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people just like that in California that Kamala Harris, unfortunately, went like this because she was playing ball with Steve Mnuchin. Who was Steve Mnuchin? Or is?
Steve Mnuchin.
Donald Trump's Treasury Secretary.
Yeah.
Who's also now leading his business in his private equity venture with Saudi Arabia. And who is Saudi Arabia? How many hijackers came from Saudi Arabia in 9/11?
I believe 11, right? Wasn't it?
Anyway, you see what I'm talking about here. All this coalition of just corruption and terrorism.
Yeah.
That's why I ultimately actually call it financial terrorism.
Well, so what is, man, this is just insane. And it's like, we need millions and millions of people to wake up to it so that if we want to get anything done.
Yeah.
And, so the first thing, you would say the first thing is getting corrupted money out of politics, going back to, donors who can give no less than $100.
No. Hold on a second. Dude,
okay.
If the Clean New Deal through the new PCOR hearing would be to what are we doing? If everything went perfectly with the government's cases against Donald Trump, what would happen?
He'd go to prison and he wouldn't be allowed to run for president.
Okay. And that would make sense considering you let an insurrection or at least wag the dog on the insurrection, right?
Yeah, for sure.
By the way, for anybody who's heard me say that stuff in the past, I just learned the other day that none other than Blackwater's Eric Prince, the billionaire brother of Betsy DeVos, who was Trump's Secretary of Treasury, who was the guy that led these mercenaries in Iraq and Kuwait and UAE and everything during the Gulf War and war on terror and yada, yada, yada. They're talking about that guy becoming Donald Trump's Secretary of Defense, which would make all the sense in the world, considering the world we live in this interplay with the CIA and all sorts of insane stuff. But going back to my point about Trump, guys, and what Uncle Jay just said, Trump would go to prison. And by the way, he'd be fined out of existence. He'd never have a business again. He'd go bankrupt and he'd be in prison for the rest of his life. That's what should happen in a country where the law, no man or company is above the law.
Absolutely.
But Uncle Jay, is that the reality of our existence?
No, and I bang my head against the wall and say, how did we get here? Because like, if I commit those crimes, I no, I'm with you. I get it, but it's like, in order for it to change, I mean, we might have to take drastic measures because they don't take us seriously. You know what I mean?
So this is what happened in Nazi Germany. Okay. By taking drastic measures, they used to have fisticuffs in the streets between the fascists and the brown shirts and the communists. And then Hitler comes along, it turns them into the National, Socialist Workers' Party, and that's the Nazis. And he gets some backing from the industrialists, and one thing leads to another. He murders everybody. You know that history, right?
No, not as much as you do, but I kind of know
That's how they remedied it in Germany, because they were talking about corruption. And so what they did was they murdered everybody. And then they became Nazis. Okay, that was one path. Stalin murdered everybody in communist Russia. There was 22 million people that got killed in the pogroms, or not pogroms, in the in the farmers, God, what is it called? It was the Great Famine, and then many other elements of that. But, when he took over the farms, and then all of the other, there was 20 million people that were killed in Russia. The difference between those outcomes and what happened in the United States after the Great Depression is we had the fucking law.
Yeah.
And yes, going back, the United States is supposed to be a democracy where you and I have equal voice, but a democracy cannot happen unless the law has integrity. Does the law have integrity in 2024?
No, it doesn't.
No.
They're bought and paid for, all of them.
Yes, we're a corrupt fascist state. That's the point. And it's a revolving door. And, was there any democracy with Kamala Harris making her position? I get why the Democrats are like, look, we've had enough of Trump. We got to rally. This is our best choice. We're all in. It reminds me, and I'll bring this up to you, and I'll let Rose Ann take it on this point especially, but
we didn't get to vote for her, though, by the way.
I know, but exactly. But see, Rose Ann.
So that's not democracy, though.
I know.
You dig what I'm saying? Not to say that I'm not going to vote for her, because I am going to vote for her, but we didn't get the option.
Because so what happened? What did I say in my soliloquy to President Biden, who I thought showed class and dignity and everything else? But he said in the last few days of his presidency, or at least until he's become this.
Neutered dog is what they've done to him. They've neutered him.
Yeah, I mean, why can't I think of the term that when you're lame duck, right? But
lame duck.
What Biden had this great response in Detroit when he said, this is Joetown and Motown is Joetown, and that he was making fun of Trump the day before that Trump had that crazy near miss scenario. But the bottom line is Joe was on fire, but his message was he's not beholden to the elites. His message was, I'm with the people. And then what happened 3 days later?
They get rid of him.
They choked the money, and they sent the message, and then he decides to say, see ya. And then Kamala has $387 million in her war chest. And what did Kamala do? Kamala played Wall Street's game in 2008, 9, 10, 11 through 16, dude. She was the West Coast Eric Holder. Is she smart? Is she capable? Is she brilliant in comparison to this idiot Donald Trump? Yes. But here's the problem, man. And I keep trying to get people to understand this. You got to think of, you can think of her as this like beautiful, elegant, capable. She just personifies all the right stuff. But she's also, think of her like, let's say this really evil tyrant billionaire guy cheats on his wife and his family. He decides he wants to take all the money away from them and give it to his woman, the woman he's having.
His mistress.
And, Kamala was his attorney. don't hate the game, don't hate the player, hate the game, right?
Yeah.
She's somebody that could be in that position. That's what she did for Wall Street, dude.
Yeah. And that's what lawyers do. I'm sure when she first started out, she was the defense attorney. Then she gone on to do prosecutorial and, went on to be attorney general of California and then went on to be a senator. So,
yeah, but but see, the prosecutor. So the thing about her being a prosecutor was she did not prosecute Steve Mnuchin, who was the foreclosure king in California, who they had like 80,000 pieces of evidence on this guy that could have put him away for the rest of his life and taken his business. That didn't happen.
Well, they must have came along and told her, listen, you want a future in politics, you're going to have to turn away from this and just play ball. That sucks, man. It's disgusting, Rose Ann. It's disgusting to see that this is what we have become, a country who just sits back and allows this. Like, you guys keep saying we got to get millions of people. It's like we shouldn't have to get anyone. They should already be there. You know what I mean? They should be out, like I don't want to, say anything like, but back in the day, when people had enough, Mussolini, they stormed the castles or whatever have you and took it upon themselves to get shit back in order.
Run them up.
Yeah, and Jay, so it's just
see you. Come on, Jay. I want to see that enthusiasm. Bring yourself on here, Jay. I want to see your enthusiasm. Come on.
Okay, hold on. I'm trying. I can't do myself. I can only do you guys. Hold on. Let me see here.
We're gonna
there it is. Can you see me now? Okay. Am I up there now?
We're gonna see you in just a second. Okay. We're gonna see you because we need.
Oh, I gotta remove Patrick. What I'm saying is man, they shouldn't. We shouldn't have to get anyone. They should already be mad and pissed off. I go back to, and I like to watch this video every so often because it says how I feel. Do you remember the movie? I don't necessarily know. I don't remember the name, but it was a anchor man. And he come in and he's got this raincoat on and he starts screaming at the, he's like, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. You know what movie I'm talking about?
You're talking about Network. And
yes.
You're talking about Albert Finney. I think.
That's him. Okay. And he's like, I'm not going to take it anymore. And I wish I had the clip. I'd pull it up and play it, but I'd probably get copyright infringement or whatever have you. But that's how I feel. I feel like, it's like I banging my head against the wall and it's like, what the hell do we got to do to wake people up? It's like, it's almost like we're in a fucking computer simulation or some shit, where everybody's just going on to get along. You got your TikTok and you got this and you got all these things to keep you fucking, stuck in la la land. And it's like, wake up. And I look at my 16-year-old daughter and my other daughters and even my wife. I mean, they're all the same. Like they fall asleep. I come downstairs and they've fallen asleep to their telephone on TikTok. And you just hear the same video being played over and over and over again. And then you hear the phone drop and they go in there and it's like they're zombies, man. I don't know what else to say about it. Well, go ahead, Rose. I know you wanted to say something. No,
that's all right. Stay right where you're at.
No, I'm just saying it's like I don't know why we have to go out and
because
go ahead.
People care about two things. And an old Chicago precinct captain said this a long time ago. He said, they care about two things. They care about garbage and dog shit. Now, think about that for a second. People will complain if the garbage isn't picked up and if there's dog poo in front of their house, but they won't talk to you about not voting for criminals. How many times in the last couple of decades have people who are dead stayed on the ballot and people vote for them? people who have done this, that, and the other thing. People are worrying about, illegal aliens are going to vote. Wait a minute. All that stuff, all those things that pop out there are simply what I call shiny objects to take your neighbors and maybe your wives or your daughters or your relatives. I know it takes my relatives' attention away. It's easier for them to look at or laugh at or make fun of the next shiny object than it is to sit their fat butt down and watch the con. And they can watch it for free. We used to have people, when you had to pay $9.99, people would complain, oh my God, you got to pay $9.99. Well, where are they now that it's free?
I would have paid $9.99 to see it, not to cut you off. And I've watched the first 3 episodes. I've watched them over and over and over again, just so that I can try to get a grasp of what the hell Patrick is trying to, lay out for us. And I had a quick little conversation with him last night. He's like, stop watching just those 3 episodes. You got to watch 5. You got to watch 4 and 5 too. And I said, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to stay up all night. And I didn't. I just went back and watched 1 through 3 again, and I'm just trying to get it because it's fascinating, but I don't think the layman's person can get it, so it's like you got to try to explain it to them in a way that they get it. I spoke with Patrick last night for about 15 minutes on the phone and said, hey man, I love what you've done. It's fascinating, but you got to kind of explain it to me in layman's terms, in a way that I can get it. And he tried to, and bless his soul, because he tried to, but I was just like, trying to figure it out. But I'll get it. I'll just keep watching it, and at some point the light will come on. And I guess I got to the point where they kept showing, the money going into the bank and then going into the Fed, and or the money going from the Fed into the bank and into all the other people. And then, and I was starting to get it a little bit, but man, it's complicated shit. But I'd have paid $9.99 for it easy.
I'm gonna send you some little clips. Okay. There's an attorney. He was the Attorney General of the state of Ohio. His name was Mark Dan, Dann. Okay. So Mark Dan gets elected in Ohio, and they're seeing all these foreclosures happen. Well, how come? So, long story short, puts together a law enforcement task force headed by a gentleman by the name of Tom Murphy. And what do? They start investigating. They start investigating a guy who, what he's doing is like what you saw with Addie Polk. They are stealing her identity and taking out loans that she doesn't know about. And who's getting the money? This company. So pretend that someone comes into your house with a gun and he's taking all your valuables. All right? Now, this is happening block after block after block after block in Ohio, any state. If that happened and a thief came into your house with a gun, and this was happening over and over and over, the cops would be all over it. But because the people who came into your house, who were selling you a mortgage that you didn't understand, or selling you a mortgage that they changed your salary, they changed what your assets were, they were stealing with doing whiteout, calculating. They were doing the same thing, and law enforcement was allowing it. Now, Mark Dan and Tom Murphy, they prosecuted criminals. The attorneys general across the country were not allowed to prosecute the way Mark Dan was, because they got the word from on top. Your laws are no good in your state. You can't do that. You got to get the word from us, federal government. Well, how does that happen? How does that happen? See, I go to the bottom line all the time. Who's getting paid off? Lawyers are getting paid off. Judges are getting paid off. It's all about money. And we, the people, just like the three of us, and I'm going to mention my dear friend Cheryl Van Epps, who's watching us on Patrick Lovell Truth Bombs the Con. Cheryl's watching us. Cheryl knows what's going on. I've known Cheryl for a number of years. Her main concern is health care, patient care. She suffered a traumatic brain injury. The woman has been fighting and fighting and fighting because she knows how people get treated. Well, guess what? Everything bad, why we don't have good patient care, why we don't have Medicare for all, why we have all this corruption, is all tied together to the corruption at the very top. As they say, the fish rots from the head. Now, I'm just going to say this metaphorically, okay? Like, no, I'm not even going to say. Corruption's, it's rampant, okay?
I mean, yeah, you got that one senator. I can't think of his name right now, but didn't he milk Medicaid out of millions and millions of dollars, and then he went on to be a elected official?
Why? Look, because we got millions of lobotomized zombies
Yeah,
who vote for people with no integrity. Look, here's what I think. Call me crazy, okay? Call me
Pat
crazy.
calls him mega mega
A
zombie apocalypse. Yeah,
MAGA
yeah.
zombie
There you go.
apocalypse.
There you
Okay,
go.
but call me crazy. But here's what I think. Okay, I think Kamala and Joe Biden, and there have to be some people of integrity in the Congress of this frickin' United States who got that much integrity to open up their frickin' mouth and call a spade a spade. Call corruption corruption. Say, people, we really are putting people before profits. We will stop. We, the companies, we will stop, and they're gonna do that. They're gonna say, I'm not gonna say I hope it would happen. I just want people of integrity to say, look, we're tired of people getting killed, committing suicide, being bombed, getting destroyed. We're tired of it. And you know what? We're going to stop it. And we're going to say, we will accept the clean new deal. We will have the proper hearings. I'm not talking about guillotines, okay? We'll have the hearings. We'll have the hearings. We'll put their corrupt asses in jail. We will fill the prisons to overflowing. But we really don't have to fill them to overflowing, because we can let out all the people who shouldn't be there in the first place. Okay? We put their asses in jail. We put them in Attica. We put them in Rikers. We put them in Pontiac. We put them in Soledad.
Attica.
All over.
Well, you said Attica.
Attica. Yeah. Yep. We put them there.
Sing Sing.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now, why can't Miss Prosecutor pick that up? She's a prosecutor. She knows where the evidence is. She knows where the bodies are buried. The politicians all over this country know where the evidence is. Where's your spine? Where's your guts? Where's your freaking courage? I'm tired of this. I'm tired of it. Okay? I'm tired of it.
Okay, can I chime in here, please?
Go ahead, Pat. I just want to say one thing. Like I told Pat last time, you gotta have a little bit of dirt on you in order for anyone to trust you in politics.
Right.
And so, but go ahead, Pat. Go ahead.
I love what. First of all, I love everything about Rose Ann, and I love what she just said, and I love the enthusiasm. And she's right to call out our politicians. They're not going to do it. We know they're not going to do it. They haven't done it since they buried it with Obama. Now, anybody who wants to go, Patrick, you're full of shit. None of this shit happened, yada, yada, yada. The Big Short told us what happened, and that's the end of it, and yada, yada, yada. No, first of all you have to do is go look up all the bank settlements between the Department of Justice, and it's on the Department of Justice website, which includes, Bank of America, Chase, Goldman Sachs, Merrill Lynch, Morgan Stanley, all of the other, JP Morgan, and then, of course, Wells Fargo. And everything I'm telling you, they admit to throughout the whole body of evidence and discovery. They just never brought charges because they got $250 billion in fines, which was a PR myth, with nobody going to prison for all of this carnage that they created. That I mentioned to you last time, Jay, that over 30 million Americans directly were impacted by this. And, it created divorces and collateral damage and suicides and this and that. And who knows how many people wound up homeless. But, like I mentioned to you in our last dialogue, that, how many 747s could you fill with 30 million people? And what would you do if they all fell out of the sky at the same time? Now, I'm going to pose the question to you, Jay. You said, look, man, I've watched the first 3 episodes and I still don't have the full grasp of the puzzle is what you're talking about, because each episode is a piece of the puzzle. You have to have the full puzzle, but it's just simply what I'm telling you, because Jay, I'll pose 3 questions to you and then we'll resolve it this way. Okay. So one, do you need to know all of the engineering and mechanics and computers of your car to know that if your brakes were clipped and designed to be clipped, and then you found out in the aftermath that your wife's and children's death was because the dealership got an insurance kickback for their death? Could you understand that there's a problem there?
Yeah.
Or what happens if you go and buy an airplane ticket on an airplane? You know, it's a little more true now than ever before because of all the stuff that we've heard because of Boeing's shortcuts, which is also tied to financialization because CEOs are making decisions where engineers should be making them because they're doing that, the shortcut, the bottom line, which is ridiculous when they get free money from the government anyway, and they're quasi government anyway, as far as the only, major plane manufacturer, aeronautic manufacturer in the United States. But if you buy a plane ticket, do you have an expectation that you're going to make it to your destination?
Absolutely.
Okay, so do you need to know how the plane flies and how the pilot got trained to be able to know that you're supposed to get to where you're going?
No.
Okay. What about if you get into a building that has an elevator? Do you expect that elevator to get you to the floor you're going to?
Absolutely.
What if you happen to find out that it was sabotage, so the bank owner could, or the building owner could get some sort of payment for insurance payment for the cable being clipped? Would that be problematic if it happened to your family and you found out that was what happened? Do you need to know how the elevator works to expect it to work?
No, I would absolutely be furious if I found out that
these are stupid questions, right?
Yeah.
Because everybody fucking knows that.
Absolutely.
So then why are we sitting on our ass when I told you that just happened to 30 plus million people and really about another 40 million other people around the world, that the guys who engineered it all did it based on what we show you in the con, which was the same deceptive acts and practices that the government is demonstrating that Donald Trump is guilty of. And he's one guy.
Yeah.
He's one guy. Okay. Is he guilty? Am I saying he's not guilty? I'm not saying he's not guilty. I'm saying he's guilty of a lot more than we've seen so far. Yeah. But we've seen plenty. Okay. He's one guy. And so all of the people out there every single day, I encounter this every single day. They're like, Kamala, save us. She's got the right skin color to, and intellect to be able to slam dunk on this buffoon that we've given an opportunity that 70 million plus people voted for in the last election, even though we saw an insurrection right in front of our eyes that the Supreme Court is now saying might be, a decision of the office. I mean, what world do we live in right now, Jay, is what I'm asking you. Do we live in a society of by and for the people where all men are created equal, where nobody's above the law?
No, we don't.
Okay, so then what are we gonna do, Jay? Are we gonna go do a revolution like they did in 1776? Do you find people that can't even freaking press a button to say share?
Yeah.
They can't even click a button to go share because they've been lied to so much.
And some of them are just worried about what may happen to them if they do hit share.
And there's a lot of people that feed from the trough of this. I say it all the time on X that really the most clever and the smartest people in our society that make the most money, they do really well in this system. This system is for them, and we've given them the top 10% really. And I don't blame them for this. I don't blame a doctor who's a brain surgeon who's got a killer house at the top of the mountain, who's got, the beautiful blonde wife and the beautiful children and his convertible Porsche. Dude, he worked his ass off to get through medical school to be a brain surgeon. Good on you, dude. It's his money manager.
Yeah.
The way with this shit. And they're the ones. So, and I've said this a lot of time, and I'll throw you another lob ball question, okay? And I know these are stupid questions, so please don't take offense.
No.
All we're talking.
I'm just happy I can answer them.
Well, you're a good man, Jay, and I hope your sister's doing well, by the way.
Thank you.
So again, if you're a complete idiot, okay, and you make stupid decisions, I mean, the dumbest, rotten, freaking corrupt, sycophantic, no morality, immoral, like sleeping with a porn star while your wife has a baby, next door, that kind of behavior. If you do all of that and you lose all your money based on really stupid behavior, should you have endless money?
No.
Why?
Because you don't deserve it.
Okay.
And if you're doing illegal shit.
Does anybody any welfare queen, included, and I say that sarcastically, but anybody on food stamps in the inner city and everything else, do they get unlimited fucking money to fly around on a private jet that they're billing, for example, the U.S. government like over $1 billion to protect their freaking criminal family?
Hell no.
Okay, but that's our system, dude.
Yeah.
So why are you sitting down? Why is every Tom, Dick, and Henry sitting down? What, do they not think that's what's real? Everybody says all the time, do they not, that the system is corrupt and we all know it? That the system is rigged and we all know it? But do they know?
Do. They all say it. I mean, if you ask that person a question, even the most unintelligent ones, if you ask them that question, they'll all tell you the same thing. Yeah, it's all corrupt.
Okay, so let me ask you one last question, Jay, given all the other stupid freaking, basic rudimentary common sense questions that any American could answer, right? But yet we all sit on our ass and do nothing while we're trying to get everybody to understand we've got the answers that, by the way, we spent $4.5 million to get the $71 trillion truth that the $90 billion a year agencies of the United States, plus the billions more in media, didn't tell you. We're the only ones that did it, and we're giving it to you for free because all the American people buy are lies, because they can't see the forest through the trees, that the emperor's new clothes and really bad acid, because they don't believe it, or they don't get it, or they don't have enough people talking about it, so they got to be sheep and they got to follow. Where are the wolves of our society that I know exist? Because let me ask you this last question, especially in Buffalo, okay? What happens if we find out in Buffalo that KC had the playbook and they knew exactly what Buffalo was running and they stole it to be able to stick at the Buffalo the last 3 seasons? How would the citizens of Buffalo respond to that?
Furious. They would be at the friggin',
World War III levels?
They'd be at the commissioner's fucking front porch, ready to.
I think they'd be a lot more than that, Jay, and you know it as well as I do. And I know you're trying to soften it because you're a good guy, but there'd be some really pissed off Bill's Mafia guys. That's a sporting analogy.
Yeah,
we're talking about people's fucking houses, in their lives, in their savings, in their future, in their
401ks and all of that.
And so what? And people just, I'm not going to do anything. Someone else is going to save me. Hey, why don't I go with the team that blew me up in the first place? Why don't I do that? Well, because my option is the team that they created.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a conundrum. What am I supposed to do? Hey, I got an idea, people. Whether you like me or not, I'm the dude with the answers. I'm the Pied Piper that can actually do this, because I'm just a deliverer, man. Because I know people much smarter than me, that Rose Ann had alluded to earlier, that if we could get critical mass, man, we could do everything that I'm telling you like that.
We need the movement. We need the people, huh?
That's right.
Do you have any faith in representatives like Jasmine Crockett, AOC? I mean, is it like can these young?
I'll tell you everything you need to know about AOC. One, she ignored everything that I'm telling you. That's part of it.
Okay. Well, see, we're fucked.
But two, I'll give you an example of what she did 3 weeks ago, right? Do you remember she said RICO wasn't a crime?
Yeah,
now she's going to try to bring impeachment proceedings against Supreme Court justices that are
RICO.
Yeah. What? So no, AOC, dude, Bernie Sanders let us down. Elizabeth Warren let us down. Obama definitely played us all for the sucker because he made the choice. Who knows why?
To bail out the banks.
Who knows why? But this is all the same continuum. And what I'm saying to the American people is stop lying, for one, and stop buying the lies. Truth will set you free. And the bottom of the line is that if we have a society that's predicated on truth and justice, it has to be because of the integrity of law. If you want, like Martin Luther King said, black babies or children to sit at the table of justice with white babies, or children, and break bread, the only way that happens with the law. Like we talked about in our last conversation, if you have a neighborhood that is dilapidated and it's crime-ridden, does it fix itself?
No,
you got to get the law in there to freaking maintain law and order. That's why you have the law. This isn't something new, my friends. This is something that has evolved over literally thousands of years. It didn't just get born with the United States. We've had this whole sort of situation, as have we had corruption. By the way, corruption has destroyed every empire for 1,000 freaking years, dude.
Yeah, for sure.
It's the story of all of Western Europe before World War II and World War I. It's the aristocracies and the monarchies and the Holy Roman Empire for 1,000 years. It's the same story. Why do you think Game of Thrones is so beautiful in its construction of this? But what did Game of Thrones do so incredibly when it told us that when you get the Iron Throne, you get the Iron Bank? Do you not?
Yeah.
You get the Iron Army. That's power, dude. And so that's what this is all about. Who has the power? And is it we the people? No. So I'm just trying to, through you and anybody who can listen and share the love, hashtag spread the word, truth is marching, that this is the clean new deal, because Patrick Lovell's got the $71 trillion truth. And why do I do it, Jay? Why do you think I do it?
You do it because you want to inform people and because you lost everything. You lost
No, dude. It's because I believe in liberty and justice above all else.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, that should be obvious. That should be obvious. You know what I'm saying? Like we all do. And we all do.
And I'm also a competitor, Jay. I'm a guy that believes in business. And, look, I know all of the different isms. I know how socialism is supposed to work. I know how capitalism is supposed to work. I know history, blah, blah, blah. I'm not a rocket scientist either. Trust me. There's a lot more smart people than I am, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand motivation and people's motivation, particularly as it relates to corruption. And all I'm telling you is that we can't survive as the United States without the integrity of law. And if you want to live for decency and dignity and integrity and honesty and all of those beauty that I heard Joe Biden say tonight in his salon speech, which is what I say in every freaking truth bomb I've ever done. The exact same thing. That's what I say to people every single time. If you want those and expect those for yourself and your children because you do not want to live in a society where somebody can throw you in the garbage and get away with it and get rich off of it, then you got to be a part of it. And that's what's called being a citizen. And if you don't, then what happens, Jay?
Everything goes to shit.
And then is it going to be easier or harder?
Much harder.
That's what we're facing, dude. I think if we lose this battle right now, we lose it for our whole lifetimes. And I think what's crazy is that, and I can understand it, okay? I can understand people that are like, oh my God, Kamala is exactly what she needs. We need her. We need her to be able to beat Trump. We need her. No, we don't. We need her to come clean.
And do the right thing.
What we need is honesty. And Jay, we have, so you've been around for quite a while. This is my last question to you, and I want you to run with Rose Ann.
Okay.
Jay, has anything changed for basically, I don't know, let's call it, I'm trying to think, maybe 5 election cycles?
No.
Okay, so what's going to change now? Fascism?
Yeah, well, I mean, the only thing, if Trump wins, then it's Project 2025. If Kamala wins, it's probably going to be the same business as usual.
So do you think we, the people, could rise up and force Kamala or the Democratic Party to wise up to this? Do you think we can?
I believe we can if we do it. I mean, but the only way we do it is by making them do it. By showing them.
It has to be millions of us.
Yeah, I know. It can't just be the 3 of us.
By the way, with the caveat to what Rose Ann said in terms of what the vision is when we get to Washington, D.C., I will present all of this information on big screens in a way that's very highly, entertaining / easy to follow the bouncing ball. And yes, we will have speakers and that sort of thing. But we've got to film a big audience showing that we, the people, know that our Supreme Court is corrupt. How hard is that with millions of women who are up to their eyeballs with Dobbs right now? I would think we could, reach across whatever ideological boundaries we have and find and break bread and go, hey, do you guys want to join us at the Supreme Court? How about all the people that do know that the Fed has been corrupt all this time? They're out there, trust me. Can we find tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people willing to go, on the same day that we're around the Supreme Court, go surround the the Federal Reserve? You bet your ass. And then same with the Department of Justice and Congress. But I'll film the whole thing, and then we'll present the whole thing at the National Mall. And hopefully we could have, my dream is to have and I call this is the journey to redeem the dream. Just like Martin Luther King with I Have a Dream, this is to redeem the dream, because when we drop kick corruption to the moon and we purge tyranny, because of the $71 trillion that I'm revealing to the country, we can unleash the renaissance of possibility. And for all those naysayers that are like, oh yeah, but that's socialism and this and that, and those guys are communists. No, MAGA, you're the socialist. You're the one that's supporting the people that got free money from the Federal Reserve so that you could hyperinflate your freaking business based on flipping houses. I mean, come on. That's what we're talking about.
And that's what I wanted to ask you. Like, so why isn't it socialism when guys like Elon Musk is a billionaire, the richest man in the world, but he gets all kinds of subsidies for his space programs and his, you know, his EV companies and everything like that? Like, we give all these subsidized money, and that's like welfare for the rich. And
it's worse than that, because it's tax breaks, but then they got it because they blew up tens of millions of people. Then we put it into zombie companies. This has been going on for the last 15 years. So yes, your point is exactly right. But what the American people have got to get through their thick heads is that nobody's coming to the rescue, because they haven't. We had, you know, and I was crying tears of joy when Barack Obama was in Chicago, you know, taking the nomination of the presidency, you know, in front of 1 million people in Hyde Park or whatever that is, and Roseanne knows, when, you know, he was changed. We can believe it.
Yeah. Yes, we can. That was the motto.
But what did he do? He put in all the guys that created this madness to clean it up, while he became this dude that made everybody think that shit was going to change, and it didn't.
I mean, we were kind of, yeah, you're right. I mean, he did change some things. I mean, in respect to, you know, ACA and, you know, gay marriage and stuff like that. And I think those two things is what created MAGA and Donald Trump. Just those two pieces of legislation.
Well, they added to it. That's what the right exploits through propaganda. But it was really the money. So, okay, this is what people have got to understand, that the housing crisis created millions and millions and billions of mortgage-backed securities that were going to fail, that were tied throughout this entire process to the white working class and their pensions. That's what created MAGA, because they lost their retirement. They worked for decades, and they got blown up by none other than what we call the neoliberal, you know, democratic machine that was all in NAFTA and globalism and all the rest of it, dude.
Yeah.
We killed the golden goose, you know, decades ago, bro.
Well, let me ask you this, Rose Ann. So there's only one news outlet that I used to watch, and I'm sad to say I, you know, no longer watch them now either, because I don't feel like I can trust them. Although I continue to watch Nicole Wallace, and I continue to watch Lawrence O'Donnell. But MSNBC was at one point is the only news outlet that I watch. Is there a way for us to, start our own you know, broadcast, you know, news outlet, some way to be able to you know, tell the American people and the masses, because I don't think
we doing right now. What are we doing right now?
I get that, but do you think we're getting? I mean, I know in real time we're not, but over the time we've got, you get so many views or whatever. But do you think we're going to be able to reach enough of the people to actually get out there in Washington D.C. the way Patrick wants to, so that he can explain the you know, the new clean deal to everyone, and then we can try to get these politicians to get in line?
Okay, stay right where you're at. I want to be able to talk to you and Patrick at the same time.
Oh, you don't want me to put you up?
No, stay.
Okay.
Did George Washington think he was going to defeat the best equipped army in the world? No. Did the abolitionists think they were going to get rid of slavery? No. Did women think they were ever going to get to vote? No. Did Ferdinand Pecora and Franklin Roosevelt think that they were going to get the Federal Deposit Insurance Company and the SEC? No. Now, so all those things happened. None of those things were perfect, but that's okay, because enough of us, you, me, Patrick, the 10,200 people that follow him, the 3,170 people who follow me, the 5,000 people on Facebook, the people that follow you, they're seeing us. They're hearing us. They're not as loud as I am, and that's okay. All right? But they got guts. You got guts. Jay, if we don't have guts, if we don't know right from wrong, if we don't know 1 + 1 = 2, if we don't know that this bank is selling to their investors bullshit that's not worth anything, okay? They do that. Plus, they're placing bets on whether it's going to go up or down. So no matter what, the fuckers win, okay? They win. We cannot let them win. Did Martin Luther King think he was going to have 1 million people at the march? No. Did he think he was going to stand there over Lyndon Baines Johnson's shoulder and see him writing legislation? No. But you do not have to hope to keep on going, okay? Once you stop, you're dead. You're burnt toast. You're fried. You're drowned. You're gonna just, that's it. Your head's coming off.
My sister, nobody delivers it better than her. But what she just said was so beautiful, because if a woman who is, I'm not going to mention her age, she's a lot younger in her vitality and her vibrancy and her dynamism than her age is for most people, because she's got this fire, man, because she believes in liberty and justice for all. She proves it every single day. And I know that if there's 2 of us, which means 3 of us, which we've connected with thousands around, but everybody they got to come together. We have to unite. The only way the power is going to listen to us is if out of nowhere, like, there's millions of people talking about the Clean New Deal. If they're talking about the corruption, then the $71 trillion truth. The problem is most people will listen to this and they're like, well, I didn't see it on Rachel Maddow, so it must mean that it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in the con, I've got the guys from the Department of Justice, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, not just guys, the top guys, and the top regulatory people in the country, not to mention the top whistleblowers that were revealing in the case of Richard Bowen, who's in episode 4 actually. He revealed literally single-handedly. And there's a lot of single-handed people in this thing, which blows my mind if you think about it. Richard Bowen single-handedly tried to stop a $90 billion a year fraud that former Treasury Secretary and former Goldman Sachs CEO Robert Rubin was helming. Richard Bowen tried to end that by himself, which would have saved millions of people. One guy. And by the way, I'll finish off with this. This is the last thing I've got to say about this. But, a couple of weeks ago, Rachel Maddow, after Stormy's appearance and all of these threats that happened to Stormy, and I have empathy for Stormy because I have empathy for people that get bullied or, tarred and feathered or challenged by, hyenas of freaking evil, right? In the case of the Trump maggots that are all over, Stormy and her pals, it's Stormy and her friends. But Stormy wasn't a hero. Stormy didn't try to stop this stuff. She just got burned in a transaction, and it was a transactional situation. And you know what? Stormy got burned and she got pissed, and okay, so she laid it out, right? Okay, fine. But she tried to put a spoke in Trump's, wheels and go public with the whole thing. No, man, that wasn't her game. Did she step up to the CEO, one of the most powerful CEOs in the biggest bank that were burning literally millions of people, putting his career on the line? No, that's a hero. Okay. And they're all over the con, by the way. And I've got them in droves. And then I'll give you a last piece because, at the end of the day, a lot of people are like, well, what's in it for me? Right. This is what's the sickest thing about the American people at this stage of the game. Fuck, everybody got fucked. I didn't get fucked. But, at the same time, they don't really care until it happens to them, unless, of course, it happened to somebody that they were loved ones, and maybe they got a little bit, but they want a little, hey, can you incentivize me? I'll just plant the seed just for shits and giggles, even though I'm not promising anything. But my work, the con, based on precedent, based on the numbers that I'm providing you, is worth like $15 trillion. I shit you not, because of what we proved that Wall Street got away with, because of what I know, because this is another intersection with me and Rose Ann. So Rose Ann came out of a school of work. It's an economic theory called modern monetary theory. And these guys were, in my world, the most observant and astute and accurate in terms of describing things that didn't make sense to me in, let's call it 2012 to 2020-ish, because, and I'm not an expert in MMT, although I've got the basics down pretty well, but there was a work by a gentleman who's this incredible economist by the name of Randall Wray, who came out of your neck of the woods, by the way, at the Levy Institute, which I'm pretty sure, where's Bard College? Do you know, is that upstate New York or is that down by the Hudson? I guess it is by the Hudson. Anyway, I answered that question, but they did the work where they found out this information that I'm providing you, which they said it was 29 trillion up until a couple of years ago, and then they upped it to 33 trillion. That's how much we provided Wall Street for destroying the country in emergency liquidity because they were bankrupt. And if you understand the nature of bankruptcy, you don't loan to people who have zero collateral, but we gave tens of trillions of dollars to a bankrupt financial system because nobody's going to stop them. Obama didn't stop him. That's why Obama probably got hired, quite frankly, when you look back at it in retrospect. Randall Wray gave us this information, which led to then the revelation of the other 16 trillion through quantitative easing. An economist will tell you, hey, you know what? That's low interest rates that, create long-term investment capital or long-term investment because of just the nature of what happens when the big money, the what do they call them? The primary dealer brokers can play. They can make their investment last longer with zero interest, right? It's free money for those guys. Plus, but the way it was working was in the quantitative easing, and this is where economists get crazy, is that they're like, yeah, you got to be careful not to mix monetary policy with fiscal policy, because the way it works in the Constitution and the government and what you understand through modern monetary theory is that because we're, a sovereign currency, the government can basically budget whatever it needs to. That's what I mentioned in our last conversation. So, for example, if we get in war or public works projects or whatever, the government always has the power of the purse to do that. And that can come out of Congress, which their goddess, Stephanie Kelton's always like, but if we can only get 535 politicians on the same page that are being paid by the corrupt guys that are using modern monetary theory for the freaking criminals. Because in quantitative easing, they were buying the revenue flow to get it off the books of the banks. They weren't taking the asset. They gave the asset, which were the houses that they recouped, and then they did this, increase of appraisal fraud that we talked about in our last dialogue. Where you can see houses go from 70,000, 15 years ago to like 200,000 now, hyperinflated over that course of time, which is exactly the same thing that took place in the 2004, 5, 6 era that led to this monstrosity. But again, it's through this methodology, because we have fiat currency, because the Federal Reserve can press digits. They don't print money. They press digits and transfer it. And there's a lot of different things that happen within the plumbing of our economic engine. And they call it like it's a ship with all of these different sorts of, guidance systems that, it's like they can deal with anything based on selling here, buying there, whatever, right? But no matter how you slice and dice it, they were buying toxic assets, i.e. the revenue stream. By the way, I do want to make this last point too. From the banks that created the madness based on all of the liars loans that I've already laid out to you, Jay, which means it was all smoke and mirrors. It was all, what did Senator Byron Dorgan describe it as? He said they were selling, not haystacks. It was worth nothing. Okay.
Yeah.
That's what they were selling. And and then they came when the whole thing blew up to Congress saying, hey, we need you guys to bail us out. But the Federal Reserve backdoored it. See, the whole thing was a smoke and mirrors. And so this is what I wanted to end it up with. One of the most shocking revelatory scenarios that I've ever come across in my life was an interview that took place in 2012 between Raj Cohen, the general managing partner of a prestigious law firm called Sullivan and Cromwell. That was the go-to for what they called the consortium. And that's what appears in all of the transcripts of the interview. The consortium, which were the too big to fail banks. And I find that interesting because it's like, that's an oligarchy. That the consortium, it's a mafiocracy. That's what it is. And that's the way they describe it. And this guy who's at the head of it, and incidentally, Sullivan and Cromwell's the same law firm that created the CIA. This guy, Raj Cohen, says, unabashedly, he says, the reason we had to expand Federal Reserve Act 13.3 in this emergency setting, which they had actually toyed with going back to Black Tuesday in 1987, because all of these changes with technology and the financial system knew stuff could go haywire if things tripwire. So they wanted to have emergency backups. But nowhere in Federal Reserve Act 13.3 does it say that you can use the full faith and credit of the United States to bankroll a fraudulent racketeering enterprise where the collateral is worth nothing. I challenge any legal expert to tell me that's what it says in the statutes of Federal Reserve Act 13.3. But further, Raj Cohen admits that. He said there was no way this was going to happen. But what they were doing, meaning the banks, was they were multi-pledging the asset. So I need you to think about this, Jay. You live in a house, you make payments. That's one payment structure. That payment structure gets put into a tranche with 1,000 other payment structures. But what these guys did with the tranches is they multi-pledged them. So that one payment stream got sold and resold and resold and resold in the collateralized debt obligations manifestations that included credit default swaps. So one payment stream became a sort of income stream for the investors for income that didn't exist. Make sense? Smoke and mirrors. So yeah. That's how we ultimately wound up with a $4.5 trillion housing bubble that became an $800 trillion global catastrophe.
So are you saying that it was illegal for Obama to bail them out?
Yes.
Okay.
Although it has been argued to me by people much smarter than I that, yeah, they can do whatever they want, but this is the caveat that I say to everybody else. Because again, if you have nuclear war, is anybody going to tell the Federal Reserve they're not going to print money to the fucking military that needs to go fight the nuclear war?
No.
Of course not, right? So there's caveats to that, but the bottom line is, and that's just logic, right? Same with a pandemic, same with this, same with that. The government can fund anything it wants to. And if it doesn't get carried away into inflation, if you have productive capacity, and that's a whole nother side of the economic modern monetary economics. But you do not provide liquidity in any banking situation to a bankrupted collateral that has no value that got that way through fraud. I'm sorry, it doesn't exist. That's illegal.
Well, let me ask you this. Now, Deutsche Bank, that bank is tied in with Putin, correct?
Yeah, of course.
And so were they, and I do believe that at some point in the series, I did see Deutsche Bank So they were involved in this whole
They
fiasco.
were one of the main players. Yes.
Okay, so do you believe that that's strategic way of Putin trying to, I want to see how I can,
Sabotage the United States.
yes, without actually putting boots on the ground.
Yes, but no. So Putin
Okay.
doesn't have that kind of leverage. Putin was just making money on his money, laundering it into real estate through Deutsche Bank to get it out of Russia because they could make more money in Western markets, and particularly through interest. And that's what these oligarchs did. Okay.
Okay.
But I will do a caveat, and this is just my own personal theory. Okay.
Okay.
I think all of this started in 1998. We had a thing called long-term capital management, where a bunch of quants put together all of these derivatives, and they shorted the market for the Russian ruble, which bankrupted Russia.
So we started it by trying to hurt Russia.
Yes,
and then they come back to bite us in the ass.
And Putin was very, very aware of that. So do I have the evidence that Putin was playing a long game for revenge? He didn't have to, dude. Yeah. Our own financial system are filled with a bunch of fucking insane, like, crack addicts for money.
Yeah, they're adrenaline junkies.
They're crack addicts because you give them free crack, which is free money because of control fraud. Because we show you in the con that the fish rots from the head through Gresham's dynamic, where everybody's got to hit the number. So everybody lies, steals, and deceits by what? Falsification of business records. What was Donald Trump just convicted of?
Falsifying business records.
So does anybody want to doubt me and say, Patrick, it's not relevant? Hey, and let's pretend like we're Kamala Harris, right? The prosecutor versus the convict. Okay, imagine like some dipshit from NBC or ABC, as an anchor asking questions at a debate between Kamala and Trump. And she asks him these questions without knowing everything I just told you. Now, that's what we've just seen play out in media over and over and over. So, for example, when MSNBC was covering this, when they were, digging into the Letitia James civil suit against the business falsification of business records and all the stuff that Trump was up to his eyes, they never bothered asking two significant questions that you and I have discussed, but we'll discuss it briefly. A, why was Deutsche Bank loaning money to Donald Trump based on the details that he put in the loan documents without verifying?
Yeah.
They use appraisers and professionals through UPAP standards to go find out that all of the material is exactly the way he said it was. Would it have been hard to find out that his penthouse on Park Avenue was not 3 times larger than the actual square footage that if they went to go check it out?
Yeah, that's all they had to do was just go check it out.
But of course they didn't, and nobody asked the question, and nobody resolved the question because that would lead to the entire system. But then you're like, okay, well, there's even more because of Deutsche Bank and Putin. And you're right, Deutsche Bank got fined $250 million for laundering money for Putin. Where was Putin laundering his money?
Here in our country, probably.
And Trump. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
for sure. Trump. I mean,
by the way, I've put that on Twitter. I've got so where did I get this information from, Jay?
I don't know, but I'll tell you this. I've always thought since the mid to late 80s, as I gotten older, I mean, because of course in the mid to late 80s, I was a young buck, but as I got older, I could make a direct correlation to what I know now and to what was going on in the mid 80s, the mid 80s and late 80s with Trump.
Right.
He was laundering money for them casinos. That's all right. Of that shit was.
This goes back the whole time. It's what, but where I got this information from. Okay. Besides, when you watch the con, you got journalists from the New York Times, you got journalists from ProPublica, the guys that blew up everything with Clarence Thomas. I mean, these are the top journalists in the world that work with me. Okay. Like the top, not to mention the ICIG and that's other stuff. But I also got this information I just told you directly from a guy by the name of David Eisinger. David Eisinger is the top New York Times business editorialist who wrote the book on Deutsche Bank and Donald Trump called Dark Towers. So I'm going to give you one last piece of information about how disgusting Donald Trump is. Donald Trump sued Deutsche Bank in 2012. A lot of people misinterpreted as for acts of God that came from the 2008 financial crisis. That's not what happened. He sued Deutsche Bank for being set up on predatory loans. The Donald Trump that paid $25 million for doing predatory loans at Trump University and everything that Donald Trump's been involved with sued Deutsche Bank for being a victim of predatory lending. So let me ask you this now that you've seen the decline. Is Donald Trump Addy Polk, brother?
Absolutely not.
Okay,
no, he's not.
Does that make you sick that happened?
Absolutely.
Okay,
and he won the lawsuit, huh?
Well, they were able to negotiate to get it so that Trump didn't have to go bankrupt the 7th time.
Oh, wow.
Bankrupt 6 times before that.
Yeah, for sure. Everything he touches turns to shit.
And he broke the law for decades and decades and decades. So the question is, why didn't Donald Trump ever go to prison?
Because he's got somebody in his pocket, or it's because if he goes to prison, then all the rest of them got to go to prison because they're all doing the same shit.
There you go.
You know what I'm saying?
There you go. So what did you just find out, Jay? What did you just resolve in your mind?
That's why he's able to get away with it, because then they can continue to get away with it.
Because the whole system's corrupt.
They're all. Oh my God, that's crazy, bro.
So imagine me on screen with Rachel Maddow. Imagine me, look, I worship Lawrence O'Donnell.
Yeah.
Lawrence O'Donnell can't tell the story. They don't pay him to tell the story.
So it's basically, if you do the right thing, then you become discredited and made to be a crazy person and you lose everything. So it's like, if you want to continue to live, your life that you live, you have to just go along to get along to go, or go along to get along.
So why do you
know
think,
what I'm saying?
Why do you think Rose Ann and I fight?
Because you want to make change, because
we're not pussies.
Yeah, well, for sure. Well, that's why I'm here with you now too.
Cowards, because we're not weak, because we don't have courage and integrity, because we do have all those things. And we know millions of Americans do. We know that. They just don't have the information. So it's up to you, it's up to me, it's up to Roseanne, it's up to everyone you see, Jade. That's not a Nazi who believes in dignity, integrity, decency, honesty, sustainability, beauty. If we all come together and merge in unity, then we can kick this corruption to the moon, baby, and we can unlock the renaissance of possibility through what? The Clean New Deal, brother, and that's our destiny.
I want to ask you one quick question, then I'm going to go to Roseanne with something. Is the con copyright? Like, can I do a watch party, a live stream on my show, and do a watch party and go live with myself and put up an episode 1 and watch episode 1 live? I can do that without any copyright infringement. Okay, I'm going to do that. You got my word. I'm going to do that. Now I'm going to go to you. I'm going to go to you, Roseanne, with this question, because you've been involved in politics and such. What is it about Trump that these people hold on to? Because like Cheryl said, he's done, it's wide range public knowledge that he's screwed over small business people. He doesn't pay his bills. He's bankrupted, multiple businesses. He's a sleazeball. Like, what is it that come on, man. 71 million people can't just all be brainwashed. There's got to be an underlining thing, to why they hang on to this guy. Is it just as simple as that, 71 million people in this country think that the black and brown folk in this country is coming in to take over their share of the pie? Or, what do you think? You tell me, because I don't get it. I don't understand how 71 million people can ride with this guy, knowing what we all know about him. It's public knowledge. You tell me. I don't know what else to say.
Just because that many people voted for him does not mean that they would support, like I support, live, share the truth, the con, and the Clean New Deal. Okay, they don't have what kind of frickin' choices we got? Okay, we don't have choices. We got bad and we got worse. Okay, so we're getting there with ranked choice voting, but that's down the road. Okay, that's going to happen. You lessen the power of these political parties, because all they are clubs. They're private clubs. Okay. Why did and I really have to think this through as well, but I think it's food for thought. Before you had the mafia, and before you had all the different crime families and things like that, you had in the Italian community the Black Hand. Okay. Well, how did that kind of disappear? And then you've got Al Capone, and you've got crime families coming up. Now, whether it's Al Capone or whether it's Robert Rubin or Jamie Dimon or Larry Fink or Lloyd Blankfein, I want to like slap him silly. But anyway, they know they can say and do whatever they want, and nobody's going to stop them. So that's one thing. Nobody's going to stop the bad guys. Do people look at Bonnie and Clyde as bad guys, or do they kind of glamorize them? Do people look at drug runners and the people in Miami Vice? Do they look at the drug kingpins and all these people that made tons and tons of money? Do they look at them as criminals, or do they look at them like, boy, what a life they got? Do we have a tendency to glamorize the scumbags? Because I don't know what else to call them. Okay? Look, in my neighborhood, they would kiss the fucking ring at a maid guys. Okay? The maid guys, the priests, the politicians. Okay? You can be as rotten as you want to be, but you still got this crazy thing going on in your head. They're tough. They got guts. Look at how they live. Hey, their wives get fur coats, and they got a new house, and they got 3 cars, and they go on vacation. Fuck that shit, okay? Let me tell you something. Unless and until you are willing to give it all up, and you gotta be able to give it all up. I can say without any hesitation, okay? You want to come and take my car? Take it. You want to take this house that I got? Take it. You want to kill me? Take it. Take my life. You want to take my life? Go ahead. But you know what? You can't destroy all my words. You cannot destroy the truth I am giving you. And I'm just going to give you a little baby example. And that little baby example is when I was in graduate school. You know, oh, you think this is how something went, and that's how something went. And then what happens? you see what they call primary documents. Documents written by the people at the time that something happened. And everything that you thought that this no good, lying, cheating, white scumbag wrote is all a fucking lie, because he had no guts. He had no courage. He had to lie. He had to lie to pass on this version of history that was only a lie. And when I did a 12,000 square foot exhibition in Chicago on Italians in Chicago from 1880 to 1965, and these namby-pamby screwball idiot white Italian Americans said to me, well, you can't put nothing in about Al Capone. I said, what are you, nuts? What are you, nuts? And you know what they said to me? Wait, I'm sitting there. You think I'm screaming now? You should have seen me screaming at these motherfuckers. And I can still see the one guy. And he says to me, oh, Rose Ann. I was the assistant director of this project. My professor was the one in charge. He goes, oh, we'll give you money. The Italian American Labor Council, whatever. We'll give you money, and then you don't have to put this in. I said, what are you, nuts? What are you, nuts? And of course, there were pictures of Al Capone, and it was a historically accurate exhibition. But they weren't going to tell me that we weren't going to. What, I erased? How the hell can you erase Al Capone? What are they, nuts?
Look, I got to just say this out loud, even though anybody who's stuck around for 2 hours to watch this knows. Look, I have been so graced by the spirit in the sky, whatever the hell you believe in, with Rose Ann Rabiola Miele, because this woman has got grit. She's got determination. She's got incredible skill and capacity in her intellectual everything, quite frankly. But it's really the heart and soul, man. And what I'm hearing from this, and what I've heard throughout this, and I know it's been, rubbing off on you, Dan, Uncle Jay, and I know that you're naturally this kind of person, because I believe that there's more of us than them. Yes. I believe that that it's the many versus the money, and what we got to get past this psychological, jingoism and gymnastics where people paint pictures that we want to believe that. Look, capitalism has got to be the way that people with ambition can thrive in a society to make money, so that it drives innovation and all of these things. That's one side of the house, right? Then there's people who believe in socialism and all the other stuff. What I'm trying to tell you, and I've told you 3 or 4 times, and what Roseanne's telling you, especially as we're talking about the mob in Chicago, it's not capitalism, dude. Capital makes money, sure. But when you break the law, breaking legs, and you get guys on camera where you're getting them, like Epstein-esque, where you're filming them to, get them in a situation where you can have them over a barrel, so you can basically get them to write legislation for you, or you're going to turn over the information to the wife and it destroys his life and all that other kind of stuff. That's not honest business. That is crime. And everybody knows it.
Everybody knows it.
But what they don't understand, we've seen it a million times in our movies and our connections, and we've seen it a million times about Wall Street. Going back to Jay, you and I talked in our last conversation. We both love the movie Wall Street. We both love JFK. Not everybody knows, but then a lot of people just kind of like, well, it's just about hijinks, and it's boys being boys, and it's men, making money and all this other stuff. And it's like, no, it's not okay for priests to rape children in their church. It's not. And if you think it is, you're going to hell if there is one. You know what I mean? I don't believe in that, but I just say it because for the believers that literally, what they're going to follow Trump. They're going to follow this guy who's a lying, deceiving, treacherous, treasonous bastard working with Saudi Arabia who got away with 9/11, however you want to interpret that. It never ends. It's 2024. Rose Ann Rabiola Miele has been doing this since 1968 that I'm aware of, the year I was born, probably before. You were there in Chicago when shit hit the fan with Daley and, the marches and, of course, all the stuff that led to the DNC. She has been in the game forever. And she is such an inspiration to me, and I hope she is to everybody else out there, because if a woman of, let's just say that doesn't have to do this, she can live in the sunshine and she can just donate her time whenever she wants to, but she believes in making right. Why wouldn't 50 million of us do the same thing? Right, Jay?
Yeah, for sure. I'm sitting here while you guys are talking. I'm sitting here trying to think, like, what can I do in my city to bring awareness to the people here in my city? You know what I mean?
Sure. Do what you just said. Everything.
Do your watch parties.
And we're so grateful to you for wanting to do it, man, because we need foot soldiers like you. And I loved what you said in our first conversation, that you have nothing to lose. How many of us in this country have nothing to lose?
A lot of us. I think there's more of us than them.
Right. And that's why I say it's the many versus the money. But don't forget what Janis Joplin said in her glorious proclamation, that freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. Right.
Yeah.
So, look, guys, we're not trying to start a revolution where we storm the Bastille and we cut their heads off or do a version of J6. We want to do this by the book. We want millions to flash mob. I'm a producer. I know how to put this stuff together. Rose Ann is a producer. She knows how. In fact, we already did. We already got the permits to march at the Federal Reserve back in, when was it? March of
November 11/1.
22. 11/1/22. That's when I was going to give up on all of this, because we did a Mr. Smith to Washington where we had people at the steps of the Federal Reserve trying to get people's attention. But it was a tiny group of people. The fact is, we need millions. And the thing is, the difference between now and 2022, Jay, is that I was telling everybody at the time, the judiciary is corrupt. Okay?
Yeah.
I've got evidence of the judiciary using tens of millions of documents. I don't have personal evidence. I've got 100,000 plus, but you can extrapolate based on the numbers, because this was the model. This was the model where the liars perjured. I mean, the lawyers perjured themselves using fake documents, just like in the electoral scheme that, by the way, Rachel Maddow discovered, and they turned that into a criminal referral. The reason why the Department of Justice went after the electoral scheme situation that led to Fani Willis's investigation with RICO in Trump's case, because of the insurrection and the fake electoral scheme to steal the electoral college, in the 2020 election. Whoa.
Yeah.
I once saw that. So I'll just finish the idea. So the bottom line is that, where was I going with this? I got distracted because my face froze on the screen.
Yeah.
The 2022.
You were talking about the about the fake electors. The fake electors.
Oh yeah, the fake electoral scheme and everything else, right?
Yep.
So Rachel Maddow does a criminal referral that leads to a RICO investigation in Fani Willis's case, right? Do you think Rachel Maddow doesn't know the information that I'm sharing with you?
No, she knows it.
Okay,
she's got it.
So why do you think she's not making that known to the world? Because tens of millions of people were the victims of it.
I would believe because she doesn't want to lose her position. She enjoys.
So is she a journalist, or is she something slightly different?
She's something slightly different. She's someone who is, she's one of, like I call them, the get along to go along to get along crowd.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Let's bring it back, and I'll be quiet after this because I'm tired and I've got to go pretty soon. But I want to just make
we'll wrap up.
I want to make this last point. The reason I had to make the con is because nobody else would.
I dig it.
And why did I tell them all the time. Patrick and I talk on the phone all the time. I told Patrick I was predisposed to understanding what was in the con. I was predisposed to that because I already knew about corruption. I knew the schemes and I didn't trust anybody. That's why I tell him I took to it so well. Okay.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is this: one person can actually do a lot of good or a lot of harm. We have a financial system that can do tremendous good or tremendous harm. And right now, well, for the last couple of decades, it's been doing tremendous harm. And I've been out in the street for a long time helping people with food, with toothbrushes, with soap, with socks, okay? Because it's the right thing to do, and it makes me very happy. And it gives me something that I can't describe, okay? I do it because I want to. I always took jobs because I wanted to be able to do something good for people. That wasn't always the case, and sometimes I had to take some really crummy jobs to get by. But I can't tell you how many jobs I quit, honey. Let me tell you. You gotta have, you know what? It to me, it really seems to be, you gotta have it here.
Yeah.
You know what was the song is called? You gotta have heart.
Yep.
Okay, you gotta have heart. All you really need is heart. When
Yeah.
the odds are saying you'll never win, that's when the grins should start. Okay, you
Yeah.
gotta have, and I will not say you gotta have hope. I will say you gotta have perseverance.
You got to have the fight.
That's right.
You got to have the fight.
You got it. I've heard you do it. Okay, I've heard you do it, and we're how many thousand miles away? Okay,
Yeah.
you got it. We gotta share it. That's what we gotta do. Okay.
Well, I'm definitely gonna have some watch parties, and maybe we'll do one together, and
Sure. Sure.
we'll get it figured out and we'll set it up, and you know because this is a fight that we've got to do. We've got to do it,
It's for
and
everybody. And
yeah, and
it's not special. It's not, we're not judging people. It's for
no.
everybody. Everybody in, nobody out. Everybody in.
Yeah, when that project 2025 was brought to my attention, and after I saw what they did with Roe v. Wade, and this immunity stuff, I said, what's next? Next is going to be Loving versus Virginia. It's going to be the ability to vote for women, the ability to vote for the African American community, segregation, Jim Crow. It looks like that these are the direction that they want to take the country in when it comes to this project 2025.
They know how to do it, don't they? And they
Yeah.
got the money. We got to cut off their money. And I'm going to, you know what? I'm going to leave you with this.
Go
Okay.
ahead.
I know we can get millions of people, because I sat in the street with 100,000 people. I marched with thousands of people, stopping the traffic, doing this. It can be done.
Well, I'd say this.
Jay. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you for coming on the show, and this is the first of many more, and I want to thank everyone else for tuning in. It was a great conversation, and we've got to have these kinds of conversations, because these are the important conversations to be had, and these are the conversations that we've got Patrick back. These are the conversations that are going to continue to get some serious change happen. You know what I'm saying? And that's what's needed, because right now the direction we're going in. Pat isn't very thrilled, or doesn't seem like, Kamala is going to do the right thing. I would hope that she would. But again, it's tough, because they all got dirt on them. They all got dirt on them. And they all want power. And so, I don't know what to think, man. I'll be voting for Kamala, because I'm going to go with the devil I know, because anything is better than what Trump is going to usher in. And, I've got 4 daughters, 2 granddaughters, and, I've got to think about them and their future. At some point I'll be gone, but they'll still be here. So,
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. My computer froze up, but
that's fine.
Nobody's asking nobody to not look. Everybody's going to go the lesser of two evils. Can we just fix this problem now and get past? That's what we've been doing the whole time. What we're trying to do is make the awareness such that the American people can't get played, and hold that as leverage for Kamala to actually say, okay, you know what, you're right, but she'll never do it unless we've got millions of fucking people. Now, does that mean that the millions of people are going to, march with us because they live in truth and justice like Rose Ann and I do, and you do too? No, they probably won't. But there are millions of others that would. I believe they would. And, can we connect this to geopolitics? We can connect it to all sorts of other stuff. Sure, guys, if you don't have the money through fiat currency and military industrial complex based on the global supremacy of the global, the dollar hegemony, and that's tied to fossil fuel. Okay, yeah, that's a big part of it. And those are things that we can talk about. And like Rose Ann had brought up, ranked choice voting and everything else. But I don't want to get lost in everything else that needs to come with this, because I'd like to end the electoral college too.
I do. I agree. I would like to do that too. One man, one vote, one woman, one vote. I agree.
But money is central to everything. And if you allow corruption to run while giving trillions of dollars to the guys that are corrupt while they're destroying millions of people, you live in a crime syndicate.
Yeah.
You're no better than Brazil. You're no better than the worst, Mexican corruption that I've seen, when I was in the 80s, right? I mean, we're talking about the United States that's descended into third world country status with nuclear weapons, where only rich people can own everything. And on top of that, you've got all, the people have got to stop allowing the system to piss on their head, telling them it's rain while they're on their knees, blindfolded with their mouths open. Nobody would do that in real life. If that were happening, they'd find the courage. So why are they doing it when it's like, look,
the government is an actual crime family, bro.
Yes.
It's what they are.
Bureaucracy.
Yeah, they're the they're the mafia of the government. I mean, that blows my mind. I mean, I always knew. Go ahead.
It's like, that's why you have investigations. That's why you have a criminal process. It's called discovery. So when I had to go through all this stuff, I just knew that I was looking around at my own experience, and I was like, none of this makes sense. But I didn't know that I was going to have to keep pulling the thread for 13 freaking years that would lead from, this to that and the other, where it would be the largest criminal racket in the history of the world. And when you have that information, Jay, you don't run from it. I don't.
Well, what can I do here in the city of Buffalo? Like, I know some people that I can start some grassroots organization. Like, is there signatures we can get to where we can, or
Yeah,
just maybe get a bunch of people
I
and
think
go down to
I
Washington?
think we
Like,
have calls like this.
okay,
I think we get people on. People ask questions. We do it. If
okay,
they want to challenge me, because I've got to. This is an educational situation. I think it's very much like, even though I'm nowhere remotely as gifted or qualified as the Reverend Martin Luther King, but there was an education component to the civil rights movement. It was like, okay, look, these are how the laws work. This is systemic racism. This is what we have to do to push back, and they did. And they had the March on Selma, and they, Rosa Parks and everything else. There has to be a people's response, because without it, again, like I said, this is 6 probably election cycles,
yeah,
right? And it's
yeah,
just, it goes on and on and on. And again, like I mentioned to you in the last conversation, the $71 trillion is 33 trillion straight up in 2009. Then there was another 16 trillion through quantitative easing. That's 49 trillion. Then in 2019, we had a repo run because of this stuff that was happening at SoftBank in Japan that created a global run that nobody really truly understands what happened. And there was an immediate $22 trillion that was pumped in because I think the rich guys were like crying that they were going to take all their money out. And so the Federal Reserve accommodated them, which wasn't too different than the Federal Reserve accommodating Peter Thiel in last year's bankruptcy with Silicon Valley Bank. All of the rich Silicon Valley guys got bailed out 100% by the same stuff. It's never ending, is what I'm saying.
who the hell? Wait a minute, hold
All
on.
right,
How do I get this? I'm trying to.
we got hacked. Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
We've gotten hacked before too with some pretty gnarly stuff. Now that I think of it.
But
Yeah, that's a we got hacked. That's a good slogan, right?
Yeah, we got hacked. But I just if you
How
ask,
do I'm gonna ban that user.
yeah, Uncle Jay, the bottom line is that you do have people that if you feel passionate about in Buffalo, it would be brilliant to get a Buffalo Mafia organized to say, we got to press out Patrick Lovell stuff in the Clean New Deal. And is it because, again, that I'm some sort of, and this is what people are going to have to figure out as we go along. And in fact, I had somebody say this in a thing. They thought I was selling the con. We're giving the con away for free because nobody knows what it is. And I mean, $4 million to get it. This is how blind people are. But at the same time, they're getting lied in every direction and nobody knows what's going on until others. What are they saying, MMT, Rose Ann? Teach one, find one, teach one.
Each one, teach one.
Each one, teach one. So
yeah,
it's just simply that people need to know that we are allowing people to buy tickets to go on a cross-country air trip that's not going to get there because it was sabotage. And that's what billionaires do because they can. I mean, they got to just understand that's the reality of what happened in our financial system.
Yeah, I don't know how the hell. I don't know what happened. Something I don't know. Get a bunch of.
We're gonna put other safeguards in.
I don't know how.
By the way, if you don't get that early, the next thing that comes is a whole bunch of black, or I shouldn't say black, but that's what happened to us. Gay porn.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, we got to figure this out. All right. Well, listen here. We did enough. Let's wrap it up. Listen. Thanks everybody for coming. You guys stick around. I'm going to go into my thing here. Thanks again for coming on. We're going to do this real soon. For all the people out there watching, we're going to definitely do a watch party with the con. Real quick, just give the people your ways to get a hold of you, through Twitter and things like that.
Roseanne, you go first.
Just follow me on Twitter at Rose Ann Rabiola M.
All right.
And for me on Twitter, I'm Patrick Lovell 1. And you spell Lovell Lovell, same as the astronaut Jim Lovell. Patrick Lovell 1. I'm also on Mastodon at Patrick Lovell 13. I'm also on Substack at Patrick Lovell. You can get me on Facebook, but I've quit using Facebook a long time ago. I'm not on Instagram. Roseanne's on Instagram. But Patrick Lovell Truth Bombs the Con on YouTube.
Awesome. I do want to apologize to anyone who was offended. We don't know what happened. We got crashed by some dubious folks. We're gonna make sure that doesn't happen again. Again, I can be you can see me on Twitter at UncleJayPodcast. Again, thanks everybody for joining in. Until next time, stay safe.
Good night, buddy.
A remix, repeat this, a reintroduction, conceive this, a whole new genre to breathe with, reproduce, so smooth on the mic and the light, my own moves, give it life, right from my own view, words mature and then grow groove, I'm the soul improve, work on me, wake up in the morning just to work on the beat, so intuitive, that's how I gotta be, when I'm in tune with the room and the God in me. It's true, never lose that. I never come through with a loose rap. Tighten up, time to enlighten them, striking like lightning and hope I don't frighten them. Boop. Recited for you to get you excited and hype. Move with the rhythm tonight, beautiful type. Women in my inhibitions, I'll move to the side. Music's my only religion, surrounding myself with only musicians. Only the best, solely uplifting. With this combination, my music is infinite. Ideal situations, stimulate them. Wanna inspire and motivate them. My goal is take them to a higher level, let the pain escape them. It's euphoric, are you for it? I promise I know you have a use for it, so let's use it. Get into it, no matter what we call it, it's soul music.
Thanks for tuning in to the Uncle Jay podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and catch us next time. This is Uncle Jay signing off. Stay blessed and always go Bills.